Probably just I serve it just increases especially for lunch. And also the portions like the amount of waste also different things like they often give like too much. Yeah, they literally just pile everything on the plate. It's like I don't take it like this. I was just not that we passed it.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank you guys all so much for being here. This means the world to me. For those who don't know, my name is Emily Henry. I'm the president of Lafayette's chapter of Amnesty International, which is the student-run organization that organized this whole thing. So it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Jimmy Dennis. In 1991, at just 21 years of age, Dennis was wrongfully convicted of a murder and sent to Pennsylvania's death row, where he would remain an inmate for nearly 26 long years. In 2013, U.S. District Judge Anita Brody threw out Dennis's conviction, saying that in convicting him, the state committed, quote, a grave miscarriage of justice. But it wasn't until May of last year that Dennis finally walked out of the courthouse a free man. Dennis's is a story of incredible injustice and heartbreak, but is also one of unparalleled inspiration and power. So please join me in welcoming Jimmy Dennis.
Hello. How y'all doing? My name is James A. Dennis. They call me Jimmy. I spent 25 years on death row for a crime I didn't commit. So I'm going to take you back in time. I'm going to tell you how it all began and then bring you up to where we are now and how I got home and all that good stuff. All right? So in 1991, a young lady by the name of Shadell Ray Williams was brutally murdered for a pair of earrings by 3 perpetrators in the Fern Rock station in Philadelphia. So the police went out to various neighborhoods in Philadelphia, searching, talking to different stick-up boys, so on and so forth. It was a very high-profile crime. The city was crying out in pain, and what the police decided to do was to lock up anybody. They needed a scapegoat, and for some odd reason, they chose me. Before I was stolen away, I was an R&B singer. I had interests in the music business. That was the circle that I was traveling in. So, every single thing that all of you would say that an innocent man is supposed to do, I did. When I heard my name mentioned, I went down to the police station, stayed down there, asked them did they want to talk to me. They said they did not. I went about my day just like you do on your college campus. Nothing was changed. Because you say an innocent man doesn't run, etc., etc. Less than 1 month later, I was arrested. My life was stolen away. All my dreams were shattered. I had a young daughter that was born 1 week after I was stolen away. So, the perpetrators of the crime, it's supposed to be 3 perpetrators. I was the only person ever arrested. They say that the perpetrator of the crime is supposed to be 5'10", 6 foot tall, 180 to 200 pounds, and dark skin complexion like Miles Davis and Wesley Snipes. Everybody in here know who Wesley Snipes is, the actor?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Miles Davis, the jazz. That's what it is. So you see me. It's not my complexion. I stand 5'4", so you know I'm not tall. And I weighed 125 pounds before I was stolen away. So they say the crime happened in seconds. 1 second, 3 seconds. So nobody can identify anybody in 1 or 3 seconds. So I went and I was put on trial for over a month. October 16th, I was found guilty. October 19th, I received the death penalty. there were endless years of appeals until 2013. I'm going to go back for just one moment. In being in prison for a crime like this, it's a different animal. And what I mean by that is you can't be in prison for doing anything to a child or a woman. So when I say the entire prison population was against me, they were against me. I barely made it out of there. Every day, I was either set up by the guards or I was either jumped by prisoners, and I had to fight. So if anybody ever see the Khalid Browder story on Netflix, my situation was like that. But everybody was against me. The guards, prisoners. So you fast forward. There's these 3 police officers. They're corrupt. The prosecutor is corrupt. The same thing that was done to me has been done to 29 other people in the city of Philadelphia by these police officers and prosecutors. So, a welfare receipt that proved my innocence was taken from a witness that I seen on a bus that day that was no more than an acquaintance. I just met Emily. I know Emily the same way I knew this person. Acquaintance, you just met, right? They took the welfare receipt from her because it proved my innocence, and they kept it hidden for over 15 years. There were statements of other people confessing to the crime that was hidden for over 15 years. None of this stuff came out, and even when it did come out, it did not get me home any faster. The state Supreme Court denied my appeals in every other state court. So when you're in prison on death row, you know, every prisoner knows that they're not going to get a fair trial in state court. You know that your fair trial is only coming when you get to federal court. Why? Because it's not a political game. It's not politics. It's about constitutional law. So when I got to federal court, on August 21st, 2013, Judge Brody, she wrote a decision. In the first paragraph, she said James A. Dennis was wrongfully convicted for a crime that he did not commit. She said it in the first paragraph, and she said it in the last. For me, that meant everything to me. After going through everything that I went through all those years, from 1991 to 2013, I was always crying out in pain for somebody to hear me. I got on the internet, I was writing letters to various organizations, asking any and everybody to help me. All the innocent projects, Centrinity Ministries, so on and so forth. But there's a wait list. You're not the only innocent person in prison. There are many innocent people in prison. But what happens is you don't hear about us the same way that you hear when someone is convicted. It's a 30-second clip on CNN or your local news show. I received all the press in the world saying I was guilty in 1992 and 1991 and 1992. But when the truth came out, it wasn't plastered all over the TV. Y'all didn't hear about it. Y'all didn't know. And so, in that 46-page decision, if you read it, the Honorable Judge Brody, she breaks down every single fact of the case and every single thing that the prosecutor and the police did that was corrupt, from beginning to end. And even then, I did not get out of jail. The prosecutor refused. Why does a prosecutor refuse to do what's right? Because they don't have the best interest of the people. That's number one. Number two, everything comes down to who's going to get elected in office over here, what's good for my career, instead of doing what's right. So 3 years later, I'm at the Third Circuit. And then they come out with a decision saying I'm innocent and it's been a grave miscarriage of justice. And that's a long opinion. It's over 100 and some odd pages from the most powerful judges in this state. But that doesn't get me out of prison either. Now, the same very prosecutor who was presiding over the last years of this case sits now in prison. Those police officers, they still have their lives, but another DA was fired as soon as Larry Krasner, the DA that y'all keep hearing about doing positive things in Philadelphia, took office. He fired another DA that presided over this case. He only did it because he was corrupt. So what you have is a system that time and time again failed me over and over again for 25.5 years. I will be home just next week will be 2 years home for me. I got out May 13th, 2017, and that was a day that I'll never forget. But you don't even believe that you're about to come home. You know, you're up that entire week leading up to it because you don't believe it's going to happen. And then when it happens, it seems like an out-of-body experience where you are literally looking at yourself outside yourself all the time until you pinch yourself and realize that you're now home, you're amongst the living, technology has surpassed you in every kind of way, right? And you're just trying to make up for lost time with your mother, you know, and your loved ones, and your children, everybody, you know. But the world is new, and that's where I'm at today. That's what's going on with me. Anybody have any questions? Any questions?
Throughout the experience of just having to keep fighting for your right to get out of prison or right to freedom, who was the biggest support for you, kept you balanced and kept you strong during the whole process?
Well, from the time I was a kid, I always had faith and belief in God, right? So that was number one. So I had key people that were in my life, my mother, my family, and my supporters were very key to keeping me strong in that situation, keeping me mentally strong. But I once read this book called The Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor E. Frankl. And in that book, he was in a Nazi concentration camp, right? So he would tell these stories about people, families, that he really knew nothing about. But he needed to give them hope and create positive thinking for them. So what he did was tell them stories that he got wind of something from the other side, a message, a positive message from the other side. So for me, being isolated in solitary confinement, 24 hours a day, most of the time, and if I did get out, it was 22 and 2, right? And I want to tell you that nobody comes through a prison system unscathed. If you're in solitary confinement for 25.5 years, you're not coming out unscathed. It doesn't matter if you're in solitary confinement for a year or two. You have to be mentally strong enough to go through that. So with me, I would think positive all the time. I knew that I would have my day of truth one day. I held on to it, I clinged to it. In every single letter I ever wrote anybody, when Kathleen received a letter from me, when my wife received a letter from me, every letter at the head of the letter said praying for the truth. If you looked inside the envelope, it said praying for the truth. I never believed that I was going to die on death row. Never, not once. I believed and I would visualize these moments that I'm having right now with you. Did I see all of you? No. But did I see myself in a room talking to people, telling them that we need to abolish the death penalty, telling them that they need to get involved, telling them that they can make a difference on this college campus? Yes, I did. There you go, question.
Okay, so first I want to just express my sympathy and say I'm truly sorry that you had to deal with all that you had to deal with.
Thank you.
But I question, you're very positive and it's amazing to see. How did you cope with anger? Are you angry? Are you suing the state? Like, are you taking action towards, guess, reparations for your time and compensation?
So, I'll take the first one. So the first one is, am I bitter? Yes. Right? Most people get out, right? Let me stand up. Most people get out, and they're going to tell you that they're not bitter. So everybody has their own thing, right? And that's cool. You're not bitter, God bless you. What I do is, I use my bitterness to do what I'm doing right here now. My bitterness is not going to be turned onto anybody. It fuels me to come talk to you. It fuels me to fight against the death penalty. It fuels me to create music and to get my dreams back that was stolen from me. That's what my bitterness does for me. There's no way that I could come out losing everything that I had, because as far as I'm concerned, y'all should be listening to me on the radio. And that's what would have happened if I hadn't been stolen away. Okay? That's exactly what would have happened. Because the same way you hear Drake had a bidding war over him when I had the same thing going on in 1991. Record labels wanted to sign me, so on and so forth. So I'm just trying to get it all back. And that's what's going on with me. So yes, there is bitterness, but I'm positive, and I use my bitterness to fuel me to fight for other innocent people that are locked up, like Ralph Stokes, that's at SEI Green Prison, the same death row that I was on. Anthony Reed, that is on death row at SEI Green in Pennsylvania, and Willie Vesey, who's doing life in Greater Ford Prison. All of which I would like for all of y'all to look these men up and look at their cases, and if you want to get involved, get involved. All it takes is lifting your voice up and speaking out and writing letters and getting involved in their situation. And each and every one of y'all can do it, because you have to remember that the civil rights movement started on college campuses, SNCC started on college campuses, the women's rights movement started on college campuses. This is the breeding ground to make change, right here, right now. Any other questions? There you go.
Okay, so like just going back to like the moment that you were convicted, I mean, I think like murder is such a high profile crime that like you have to gather a lot of evidence to convict. But like, what was the biggest thing that you were like really seriously like, are they convicting me because of this? Because I'm assuming there was not DNA evidence and she didn't do it.
Right.
Like, what was the main thing?
Right. So what they did was they ushered in 3 people, and they had a DA by the name of Roger King, who is like a scene from any Law and Order episode that you want to see. It's theatrical. It's all show, right? He'll do something wrong, he'll come in the next day and he'll correct it, but not in front of the jury. So the damage is already done, right? And they literally had no evidence. They lied about everything at every given turn. The police got up on the witness stand. They lied about clothes that was taken from my father's house, but they weren't taken from my father's house. They was actually taken from 3 different locations, and they were all female clothes that fit my mother, my sister, and my children's mother, and they all weighed over 200 pounds. So think about, my frame was 125 pounds. That's like all of you going and then putting on your mother's clothes at 2-3 years old. You know how you play in the shoes and all that stuff. That's what it was. And then they talked about it, but then they lost it. All this evidence could have proved my innocence, right? They had clothes from the victim that they mysteriously lost, because if anybody gets into a physical struggle with anybody, or if I hug you right now, my fingerprints are on your clothes. Okay? So, they lost the clothes, and they had 3 different stories, and that could have proved my innocence. Any DNA evidence in this case, they lost on purpose. And then in 2005, at an evidentiary hearing, they said that, and I want you to think about this for a minute, because this was a moment. In 2005, we had an evidentiary hearing. And so they asked what happened to all this lost evidence. And the police detective got on the witness stand and he said, the cleaners threw it away. Well, think about that for a minute. Think about this. Just use your intelligence, right? In no police evidence room in this country does anybody clean, does anybody go through, right? When confronted, when this same police officer was confronted with the fact that he had went and took all the files out of the police building, right? And he said he didn't. When he was confronted with the actual police sign-out sheet, he then just said, I don't know what happened to it. They knew that they were lying at every turn, and eventually they couldn't cover it up. Any other questions? There you go, right in the back. How you doing?
Hi. How or do you keep faith in justice? It kind of seems like the entire system is, like, corruption is integral to the justice system currently, and obviously certain cases, there are many like yours that are being publicized, but not to the extent that they should be in order to make a systematic, like, overhaul. Like, how do you keep faith that it will change, or what steps do you think are best to take? Because it really is hard to go case by case, I think.
Right. So, it can be depressing to each and every one of you in this room. And if you get involved with anybody, whether it's Amnesty International or you seek to get involved with any of the men that I spoke to you about, you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs, right? That's normal, that you're going to have ups and downs. But the thing you have to remember is I'm living proof that if you get involved, like Andrew, like Emily did for me, and they started writing articles, they started being my voice while I was in prison, they started speaking out for me, writing articles. If you get involved, I'm your living proof that you're going to make a difference, right? And that someday that person, that innocent man or woman that you're helping, they're going to be standing before you, right? So there's always going to be ebbs and flows to life, always. Nothing is ever, nobody promised anybody that life was going to be a picket fence, you white picket fence with a rose bush and all that kind of stuff, right? We know there's evil in the world, we know there's corruption. But all of us in this room that are good, that have morals, that have virtue, we need to tip the balance of the scale our way, right? And that's with us raising our voice like a choir in unison, saying enough is enough. And you start this with the power of the vote, right? Pay attention to who you vote in office. That's important. Judges, prosecutors. If they don't stand for what you stand for, you shouldn't be voting for them. If you know that there's an innocent woman or man over here and they're not doing right, you shouldn't want to vote them back in office. You know? That's how we correct the balance. That's how we tip it back in our favor. And the one thing that we need to do is, the other thing is if we abolish the death penalty, we diminish the risk of killing an innocent woman and man in this country. It's not a deterrent. The death penalty is not a deterrent. I only had one appeal left. Okay? And if I wouldn't have came home, then I wouldn't be standing before you today. Because the next court that I was going to, it wasn't fair. It was nothing about that court that was going to be fair. Okay? Because the U.S. Supreme Court had already ruled that it's okay to kill an innocent person as long as they say that they had a fair trial. That's a fact. Okay? So you got to understand that if we together, everybody, want to start to get involved, you can tip the scales of justice in the right way. Any other questions? Here you go. Right
Yeah.
here, I'm gonna get to you still.
What has been the most difficult part about reclaiming your life now that you're out?
I guess, for me, most difficult part is just day to day, living day to day, trying to get back acclimated into the world itself. Technology is this amazing thing. When I went away, I had a beeper, I had this big cell phone that you see everybody climb up on the, the telephone people climb up on the thing with. That's how cell phones look. Now now you got this thing where you texting somebody and they in Switzerland or they in Kansas or the internet. It's a thing, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I just really learned how to post pictures on Facebook and Instagram, right? Yeah, I mean, so that's been a thing, and just I suffer. Like I said, nobody comes from prison unscathed, so I suffer from PTSD, panic and anxiety attacks, all of which developed while I was in prison. And a lot of times when I hear sirens or see police officers, I think they come to set me up again. I believe they come to steal my life. It's a huge step for me to be in front of y'all right now, because I normally don't like to be around crowds or anything, because the way I was being attacked in prison, I was being jumped by multiple people, all right? And for me, having my back against the wall, ready to defend myself, was a thing. So I tried to avoid crowds and things like that. So this is a huge step for me, being here with all y'all, wonderful people, and trying to, take a positive step forward to try to right some of the wrongs in my life to get healthy, totally healthy. There you go. Sis?
I have two questions. One is, do you know how your name even came up in conversation? Like, who threw your name out there?
Yes.
and
Go ahead.
And the second one is, you said you had a child born a week after you left, right?
Mhm.
How has that been reconnected?
Okay. So, a group of stick-up boys in the neighborhood that I grew up in that were jealous of me, they were stick-up boys. So, this is who the police came and gathered up and took down the police station. And the police got dumb to say anybody's name, and they chose to say my name because they didn't like me, and they knew what was going on with me and my group, and a lot of them didn't like me. Then there was another guy who, he basically stole my entire identity, and he didn't like me, and he always wanted to be me. And he entered into another high school as me, and he wound up, yes, this is all fact. This is all in the trial transcripts. You can read it online. He entered into a high school as me. He wanted to be the leader of my group, and it was a thing. And he had a assault case and a drug case, and so he traded testimony to lie on me with these other known stick-up boys in the community to get themselves out of trouble. They lied on me. And as far as my youngest daughter is, I have two daughters. My youngest daughter is 27. Reconnecting with her has been a beautiful process and a roller coaster ride as well. And that's perfectly honest. You know what I mean? Because you have been taken away from your child. And even though I wrote my daughters all the time when I was in prison, my dad would bring them all the way to any prison that I was at to see me when my dad got sick, right? He could no longer do that. But I still, imagine you get one phone call a month for 15 minutes, right? How can you really, who you gonna choose to talk to? Your mom, your daughters, and then when they let you get 3 phone calls a week, which eventually you got 3 phone calls a week, you still have to manage being a parent in 15 minutes to a child, to 2 daughters that are growing up, And what you don't see, the side that y'all don't see of the system is designed to destroy the family dynamic. It did that. It ripped mine to shreds. It was done, over. The things my family went through, and they continue to go through, you wouldn't even believe it. It was like, every single month was a nightmare. Something was going on, or something was wrong. So we talk every day, we see each other, on a regular basis, and I try to spend as much time as I can with them. But because of what I'm suffering, it makes it difficult too, right? And then what they have went through, it makes it difficult as well. So, any other questions? Right here.
You talked a lot about the death penalty, and you briefly touched on solitary confinement. So what do you think about solitary confinement? Like, is it cruel and unusual punishment? And also, what were your interactions with rehabilitation within the criminal justice system, if that was something you interacted with, and what do you think rehabilitation should play in terms of criminal reform?
Well, there's no rehabilitation in the criminal justice system. Anybody that you hear say that, they're lying. It's not true. So just throw that out the window. Any politician you hear saying it's a lie. There's no such thing as rehabilitation in the criminal justice system. That's number one. Number two, they took the education system out of prison, where we were able to go to college, get degrees, so on and so forth. Gone, right? That was rehabilitation. That would have been rehabilitation, because you're giving a lot of men and women access to education, right? Where they can then have goals, have dreams, and aspire to things to be when they come home, right? So now all they have is a bunch of classes that really don't account for nothing. The next thing is, being in solitary confinement, think about this. You're in solitary confinement, there is a light on 24 hours a day. That light doesn't go off. That light gets dim, okay? But it doesn't go off. So there is no darkness ever, right? That's gonna mess with your brain. You got 4 walls. You get yard 1 time a day for an hour or 2 if you're lucky. That means if you don't get burnt by the guards coming around in the morning time, right? If the guard don't like you, you ain't gonna get yard. You gotta stand up and make sure you on the door at 6 o'clock in the morning to get yard, to go out around 7 or 8, okay? And the guards in prison, in every single prison I was in, the guards are vicious, period. Ain't nothing nice about them. Ain't a bunch of good people, because they're trained at the academy to treat you like crap, to treat you like dirt. This is how they trained at the academy. You may get a few, and I mean a few, okay guards, but the majority of them, they trying to put their foot on your neck. And when you're in solitary confinement, you got 4 walls, basically, probably don't even have a window. And if you do have a window, it's like this, small window. It's cruel and unusual punishment, because most people, I've seen people kill themselves, I've seen people go crazy, I've seen body bags being taken off of every single prison that I was in. So you have to be mentally strong and able to endure, and most people, might not be able to do that. If everybody in here locked themselves in a bathroom for a weekend and then told your roommate or your family member to come serve you 3 meals on a tray, and everything you needed to do, you had to do in your bathroom. So imagine that you don't have a spacious bathroom, you just have this compound 4-wall cell, a block, a cylinder. That's what you're in. It's cruel and unusual punishment. Here you go, my man.
You were talking about like being able to bear solitary confinement. What were your what did you do if the classes you felt were kind of like a futile effort? What did you do to while you were incarcerated?
Okay, so those classes that I talked about are in population. They're not offered to death row guys. Number one, you're in solitary confinement, you don't get none of that. Only thing you get on death row is yard, library, and the shower. Shower is 15 minutes, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? Yard is Monday through Friday, and like I said, you got to sign up for it. Library, you got over 180 men on the block. They got 4 slots to a library, so you have to sign up for it. So you probably only go down there once a week, unless somebody signed you up and they want to do law with you. That's how you go to the library. For me, every single morning, from the time I was stolen away, music was always very important to me from the time I was a kid. My dad was a musician. my aunt was a musician, so and so. So from the very moment I was stolen away, I heard this song in my head by the Winans called Trust in God. Every morning that song played in my head. Then it would go to John Coltrane, Dear Lord, because I didn't have any radio stations up there. You far away. Then it would go to John Coltrane, Dear Lord. Then it would go to Bruce Springsteen, the E Street Band, Hungry Heart. And then Bruce Springsteen has all these ad-libs I love, like, all right, come on. And for me, my day is starting, right? Then it would go, for me, in my head, it would go to Stevie Wonder, If It's Magic, and then it would go to Fleetwood Mac, Don't Stop. And these are my rallying cries. These are my theme songs. This is my motivation to get me up. And the first thing I would do when I woke up, I would say, thank you, Lord, for giving me another day, right? Even though I had a crappy sleep, right? Thank you, Lord, for giving me another day. I would pray, and then I would start work on the Justice for Jimmy campaign, which was me writing letters to various people around the world, trying to connect everybody to speak out about my innocence, so on and so forth, like Kathleen and Emily and Andrew did. And then I would do legal work. And I would make a phone call to my lawyers, and that's what I did all day, 25.5 years. I literally turned that cell into a library. I stopped going to their library, stopped going to the yard, and I just stayed in that cell. Because I couldn't deal with handcuffs being on me no more. Didn't want to eat when they said eat. Didn't want to sleep when they said sleep. So I had this thing where I call putting up AI numbers. So I literally would be up and I would write over 40 important letters and put my information, the Justice for Jimmy letters in it, which was like a 8-page letter letting people know all around the world why I was innocent and breaking down the facts. I had a website and so on and so forth, and I would tell people, listen, don't take my word for it. You can read the transcripts. I will give you all the documents for free. Nobody ever done that before I did that. And that's how I was able to gain a lot of support. Any other questions? Yes, sister.
I kind of have a two-part question. The first one is, have you seen the documentary 13?
13?
Yes.
No, I have not.
Oh, okay. Then my second question is irrelevant.
All right, well, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
What is 13 about?
13 is a documentary that argues that mass incarceration is essentially an extension of slavery. And I just wanted to see what your perspective was on this issue from the inside. Do you feel like that is, firsthand, do you feel like that is going on? And how does that impact other prisoners that were around you?
Okay. So I can answer that.
Okay.
See? That's why I asked you a question. All right. Dr. King, before Dr. King died, Dr. King was talking about the prison industrial system being the new modern day slavery. Okay? Yes, it is the new modern day slavery. If you read a book by Michelle Alexander called The New Jim Crow, she breaks down in that book that it is the new modern day slavery. But every single prisoner in there feels that way. Now, if you have a brother, and your brother is in prison, right? And you want to send him a 13-inch TV, right? You can't. The TV will be brought from, let's just say, because I'm dated, so don't laugh, Circuit City, right? All right? So you can't send it to him from Circuit City, even though it's coming right from the company. They're going to go through it. The prison is going to dismantle it, go through it, and then give it to him. You can't do that. You know why? The reason that you can't do that, because they're going to sell a TV for $257 that's going to break down in a year. And you're going to need to send your brother that money for that TV so he can be a little comfortable, watch a little TV, you know what I mean? So on and so forth, or go to the commissary. Can't send him anything. There's nothing that you can send that wouldn't harm anybody to him in prison, because prison is $1 billion business. Every single thing we need, we have to go to the commissary and get it from them. And what you have to understand is these commissary companies, Keefe and so on and so forth, they are corporations. And a lot of people that are in politics have stock in those companies. That's a fact. And so they have bidding wars about who's going to get the prison contracts. All the time. Comes up 5 years, 7 years, whatever the time frame is, and they have bidding wars. Like with Western Union and J-Play is a prime example. When we were in prison, if you wanted to send your brother or your sister a money order, it is cheaper for you to send a money order rather than J-Pay. J-Pay came in, the prison, all prisons in Pennsylvania stopped you from being able to send a money order, so on and forth. You have to go through J-Pay. J-Pay has a prison contract. J-Pay then gets a percentage of everything coming in. So if you want to send your son $50, you got to pay $7.95 just to send your son $50 so that he can buy food from the commissary. And why is it important to buy food from the commissary? Because the trays that the prisoners get are unsanitary. They don't have plastic inserts. I could go on and on. Any other questions? Yes, sister.
So you mentioned that like for you, speaking in front of groups of people has been really hard due to like, you know, your PTSD and things like that. But do you see yourself maybe speaking at like other states, like for example Texas, where the death penalty is a big conversation that's being had?
If they call me, I'll come. They call me, I'll come. Anybody call me, I'll put on my little all white and I'll go. This is my Superman costume. Superman got a costume. When I got on all white, I'm fighting for the rights of other innocent men and women in this country. And I'm advocating for justice for anybody. No matter what the situation is. If somebody had their constitutional rights violated and they call me and I can help and I can be of assistance, I'm going to help. That's for sure. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, when can we hear some new music?
Funny you should ask.
Funny you should ask, okay? So everybody got a phone in here. So every single person in here, no matter what you listen to music on, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, whatever, all y'all can go punch in Jimmy Dennis and punch up a song called You Said. You Said, the original version. There's an original version. There's an acapella version. All y'all can listen to it. It's a nice R&B song. Hopefully you like it. If you like it, cool. You know what I mean? Or you could go to YouTube. You know, I ain't got it, you know. Or you go to YouTube. So Jimmy Dennis, You Said, and I'm about to put out more music in June. In June, I'm about to put out a whole project, a whole EP out in June. So be looking for that. Yes.
Sorry, I have two questions. One is, would you introduce your wife, please?
Yes. This is my childhood sweetheart. Her name is Corby Johnson.
Stand up for me.
Stand up. This is my childhood sweetheart, Corby Johnson. She was riding with me when I was in prison. She's a lovely woman. She's my heartbeat. She holds me down, take excellent care of me. So,
The second one is, what were you doing in Harrisburg?
So last Tuesday, myself, State Representative Christopher Rad, my man Andrew over here, Kathleen, and Kurt Bloodsworth, the first innocent person exonerated for DNA evidence. We all was in Harrisburg at the Capitol when we introduced legislation, a bill to abolish the death penalty. And that was a monumental moment for me. It was a monumental moment for all of us because a bill has never been passed. It has bipartisan support. But if all of you in this room support it as well, it could get done, it could go forward, and we could do something positive. So I would like for each and every one of y'all to try to support that bill. If you believe in innocence and if you believe in justice, please support that bill. That would be huge for me. That would be a win-win. All right, any other questions?
Would you mind telling a little bit about the 2 stays that you had?
All right, so I had 2 stays of execution when I was on death row, which is, I don't know why I always leave that out, but I did. My death warrant was signed And when they put you on what they call phase 2, they take you from a regular cell and they take you to phase 2. And what phase 2 is you're watched with a camera 24 hours a day. You already don't have any type of privacy on death row, number one. But now you have somebody looking into the cell that you're in, right? And you're sitting there and you're just waiting to die. You have no property in that cell or anything whatsoever. And they come and get you, they fingerprint you again, they take multiple pictures of you, and then they give you a date to die. And one of the tragic things that happened to me was that one of the days, my first day of execution, my first execution date, the day that they chose for me to die was December 3rd. December 3rd is my daughter's birthday. How cruel is that, right? So, I wound up getting a stay of execution that time. Then when I lost another appeal at the PA Supreme Court, and they gave me another stay of execution. It takes your family on an emotional roller coaster. It takes you on an emotional roller coaster. If you think I didn't cry, I did. All right? There was a lot of tears flowing because nobody wants to die before it's their time. And nobody wants to die for something that they did not do, you know. And so when those things happen to me twice, I'll never get over it. I'll never get over it. It always comes rushing back. I can't tell you when it comes, it just comes. Because it's one of the most scariest times in my life, knowing that I had an actual date and you're waiting for a judge to say, okay, we're not going to kill him this time. You know, so it's like having a gun to your head every day. Being on death row is like having a literally gun to your head every day, and that's what it was for me. Any other questions? Yes.
What were your interactions like with other inmates, and did you have like any positive interactions?
Yes. So they would have you believe that there's no good men on death row. That's a lie. I will tell you firsthand, that's a lie. Understand what I said earlier, I had the whole world against me. At every single prison I went to, I had to start all over. After I gained respect at one prison, I had to start all over where everybody's trying to kill me again. And so I met several people that were intricate in my life that would stand right beside me. One is the guy that I told you about that I want y'all to get involved in, is Anthony Reed. Anthony Reed is a guy that befriended me, and he would fight by my side all the time. He always had my back, 100%. This is a good man, right? Wouldn't let nobody jump me, wouldn't let nobody, get over on me, so on and so forth. The other is Ralph Stokes. And there were other guys, Danielle Patty, Ronald Gibson. All these guys were good men, and I befriended them. One of my closest friends is named Manuel Spover. There's another guy by the name of Kenneth Miller. All these men are still in prison unjustly, right? And they need help. Kenneth Miller is an innocent man. Anthony Reed is an innocent man. Ralph Stokes is an innocent man, and they need help. Manuel Spover is a guy that was actually defending someone's honor, that were trying to hurt someone, right? And he had to protect them. So should he be in jail? No, he should not. So there's all type kind of people that you meet, but you think that they're the worst of the worst, but you will meet poets, writers, architects, so on and so forth, that some of them had their life away. Now, I'm not standing here before you telling you that every single person is innocent. That's not what I'm telling you. But I'm telling you that the guys that I just said, they are innocent. And I'm then telling you that I know for a fact that a lot of men have had their constitutional rights violated. Therefore, they should not be executed by this state. Any more questions?
Can I ask you a favor? I would just love to have Andrew and Emily just spend a couple minutes talking about what your experience was like, and then ask for help while you're there.
There you go.
So, yes, my name is Andrew. Most of you don't know who I am. A few of you are that unlucky that you do. I am
Not
a member.
sir.
I'm a member of the class of 2016, Lafayette alum. And right before I was going to graduate, I realized I didn't really have a whole good plan of what was going to happen next. Like a lot of you probably right now are freaking out about. You have good company. So I got involved with a lot of human rights issues. I got involved more than any other really with the death penalty. And it so happened that at that time, Jimmy's case came up for what was a very monumental hearing in front of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. It's called an en banc hearing. It's when the court takes the rare step of having all, I think it's 13 judges hear a case instead of small panels, which is what it usually is. And so Jimmy's case was up, and I was reading about it because it was happening, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. I think a lot of you right now are probably sitting here thinking, what in the hell is this? There's no way this is this is like some Netflix, gone wrong story. But it happened.
It happens all the time.
And it happens all the time. And it so happened that I was reading this case and I'm seeing this, there's forensic evidence of his innocence. There's concrete, indefensible evidence that prosecutors allowed, misconduct to happen at the trial with the goal of getting a conviction. As Jimmy said, who that person is, that's a secondary concern. And so I'm reading this and I'm getting madder and madder because it's so blatantly obvious that this is an innocent man on death row and it's my elected officials who put him there. And so I wanted to do something about that. And so Emily helped me start. It really was a simple campaign. The idea was to raise awareness of Jimmy's case and how blatantly ridiculous it was that he was sitting on death row and the adults in the room did not seem to want to do anything about it to get him off. So we started writing, we recruited some people and started writing letters to the editor of newspapers around the state, which I know print news is, letter to the editor might sound a little bit foreign. Real short blurbs, 200 words or less. What your thoughts are on the news of the day, send them in to whatever newspaper you want. And they pick a couple, they publish them. Real simple way to get a lot of news out to a lot of people.
And be effective. It was very effective.
And so that was the whole campaign that Emily and I did. And we were able to get a lot of coverage we got a significant amount of coverage in the 5 biggest media markets in the state. And as a result, we were able to reach thousands and thousands of people about Jimmy's case. So it's not an accident that Jimmy's here at Lafayette specifically.
No.
And so my message would be, it's not always obvious what cause you're going to fight for. But I think in this day and age especially, everyone's sort of sitting there thinking, with all the vitriol and all the fear-mongering and everything, what can I do to try and make my community a little bit better than it was yesterday? So open your eyes and look for something to champion. For me and for Emily, Jimmy was something to champion.
And I am grateful.
And thankfully, the courts saw what we saw. It was very clear that this man was innocent, and he's here today. But there is a strong possibility that that would not have happened. We've had in Pennsylvania 6 individuals exonerated from death row. Innocence is real. There's a study recently done, a couple of Michigan Stanford professors, it was in the Proceedings of the Academy of it's a really long journal title. Anyways, and it estimated, a conservative estimate, that 1 out of every 25 individuals on death row in the United States is innocent. The real number is probably dramatically higher, because most people like Jimmy don't actually it's weird to say fortunate because of what the state took from him, but most individuals are not fortunate enough to have that opportunity to get out.
I actually got involved in this case because of Andrew, and I was fortunate enough that Kathleen actually lives in my hometown, so I actually was able to do an internship with her the summer between my freshman and sophomore years, and getting into that, I had no idea that I would become so engrossed in something so powerful. I had only heard about Jimmy briefly before agreeing to do this internship, and once I was put on the job, it was easily the hardest work I've ever had to do emotionally, just because, like Andrew said, reading about all of the injustices that were inflicted upon Jimmy, it was incredible in a terrible way to read that every day and to stomach that. It's very hard, and that was something that separating my emotions from the actual work was very, very challenging. But obviously, this was the most important thing that I've probably ever gotten involved in, and it's something that we really wanted to make this event actionable for you guys. So we're really trying to promote the idea that we were just students, and you guys can do this exact same thing for people like Jimmy. It's like Andrew said, it's way more common than you think, and so there are organizations like Pennsylvanians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty that Kathleen is in charge of. There's bigger organizations like Amnesty International and Lafayette's version of that, and all of these different organizations are working to promote justice, and you guys have every opportunity to get involved in that. And so we hope that was abundantly clear today. And so if you feel so inspired, we would just encourage you guys to really act.
I want to say two really quick things. One, just like a really quick kind of technical note. Someone asked earlier about, is Jimmy going to sue the state or anything like that. I think it's important to know that there are 30 states that have absolutely no statute providing wrongfully convicted individuals with compensation. Pennsylvania is one of them.
Yes.
Not a dime,
So,
regardless of what they did, and regardless of how many quarters of a century of lives were taken from individuals. So, technical note that I would encourage you all to look into a little bit further. And speaking of looking into a little bit further, like Emily said, if death penalty abolition sounds like something that you're interested in, there's a lot more that we could sit here all night and talk about this. We're not going to do that because Jimmy's story is an example of the most concise argument against the death penalty that we'll come up with. But there is a lot of work happening behind the scenes, and so if that's something that you're interested in, come up and talk to us. Like I said, there's this lovely, incredibly long title, which is fun to fit on a resume, Pennsylvanians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. We are looking for interns for the summer. So if that's something that you're interested in, come up and see us. And regardless of whether or not it's something you're interested in, I just encourage you all to go find your Jimmy.
Indeed, I echo that. All right.
Okay, well, thank you guys.
We'll stick around a little. Feel free to come up and talk, and thank you all for
Appreciate all you coming here. Thank you.
How are you?
And so working remotely is more challenging, but you definitely like to I did just research, so I did research.
Yeah, it's really remote. This is,
Wrote countless letters to many individuals, but
so,
no
a lot of people are grabbing
You've seen it.
Yeah.
You've seen it about time.
Yeah.
You've seen it all over the different.
maybe
No,
kind of
it's
like
really great.
certainly to do this stuff work kind of on
I'm
like
getting up there.
this.
Y'all the future leaders.
You just talk about yourself. How far is your
Yeah, so
Yeah, so you wouldn't be
specifically,
required to stay there.
so Jimmy's hearing.
But
Summer 2016, so
yeah, there are definitely opportunities.
They did this.
And it was always involved in amnesty.
Like I talked about it, it was very fun about what I was gonna do after graduation. I was
That was
very
amnesty.
involved.
Yeah.
Take a little bit of time.
Right.
Really, yeah.
Are you going to be
These days just have been.
But
That's interesting. Actually, I was a college major. Okay, so very different. So it would kind of be
And so,
for good in the same way that I work.
so,
Very
these days
different,
have been.
very different cause. But yeah, definitely any of the skills that you acquire in
listen to Kanye, but he's a fool.
anything. It's really translatable to the job. Effective communication skills at all realms. And that was something that I learned. I have to like summarize these pieces in like 3 sentences that everybody at every level of education understands. It's really challenging, and so there's definitely skills that I learned. Even just managing nutrition skills. It was so hard. There were times when I should like excuse myself and go back, and it was just like,
You know what I mean?
it was too much.
All the ones that can affect change.
There are definitely things that I got out of it, not just
Something that is so
definitely.
Don't let nobody ever
Yeah.
anything
It also shows how.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Never let nobody kill you.
Yeah, I wanna go
No
more
matter what it
into
is.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah, of course.
I didn't really know.
Listen to that.
Deeply held.
We're small, we're very, very small, but we just actually
I'm making
co-president.
everything that was stolen from me.
Yes, we are always looking for members, yeah, definitely, and also, I'm gonna.
Like you need
This
to
is Amnesty International.
meet you, and meet you since the day.
Thank you. I'm just the first one, I'm gonna give you everybody's student.
Hey, how you doing? Zach Andrews.
I'm from North Philly, but the crowd took place in front of my situation. We live in Mount Airy right now, but
Absolutely,
I grew up in
absolutely.
North
So, it's Amnesty International group.
I think she got a dog.
So, Andrews, Emily are
Sure, Amnesty International looking for is really good next year. So it's obviously it's international, because that's what they do interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I think R&B,
spearheaded this whole movement for me was to create R&B movement. So I think
Hear me on YouTube.
Jimmy Dennis, you said, tell your friends about
just support that kind of stuff. Occasionally we get about Jimmy, of managing to.
Yes, it was a direct correlation between
broad human rights in whatever
Andrew and
way
he was doing, because even before,
members
I went up for
Yeah.
a field.
it's an organization that's
They
really
were
tailored to
putting out
members.
letters and articles and they were
So
doing
I'm a
behind the
geology major,
scenes
so a
stuff
lot of
to help get me
what
out.
personally
People
speaks to me
educated.
of making policy is
Right.
bringing awareness.
So-
Bringing awareness. So it's kind of, so you're for sure great.
I'm saying it is.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Like, these are guys, Kenneth Miller, sir.
I really got to
Came up.
I
All these guys.
we've been having worked on this case for so long, this was
My Facebook is
something that we've been trying to
Instagram,
get done for a
Jimmy
long time.
Dennis. You see me all white,
Because of PTSD
all
and all
white.
that, it
Jimmy
was
Dennis
really
music and all of that.
in my
Like,
If
space.
you miss
I don't
out
have
or something,
partners,
And so,
I'm trying to get
I'm
direct
incredibly
you,
grateful
right
to have
direct
you
you.
here. It was,
I have some, I
oh
just-
my gosh, this story is probably,
Evidently it was got lost.
it's gotta be the most
started.
compelling evidence for the evolution that I've been to do.
Like here's some of the
Having him here is
stuff
just
now. Freshmen or underclassmen coming. They can do it. But y'all have to be out
No, where'd you go? I yeah, I know what you meant. I think he was talking about your experience and as far as,
So it isn't like a common like touring the country.
no, I think maybe in the future, maybe trying to do more, this can't be very actionable at this point. So once he kind of comes to terms with bringing justice to Rick Rowland again,
He's the
I think that's all that
Kind of
counts.
big, yeah.
Even though for this is definitely not, he's not lying.
I'd be friends with him.
It's really interesting, right?
Do you want to just look at your thoughts or?
Yeah.
Sure, my name is Emily Henry, so that's spelled
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah.
M-I-L-I-E.
Okay.
And I'm a senior.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
his job is as an officer of the court is to do what's right.
Oh, really?
Not what is best for his political.
She's really passionate about it, so.
Yeah, thanks so much. Have a great night.
Because when he first started out,
Great.
he started out
What class years are you
way
guys?
first. It was more for people. And then he started
I'm
getting
so
started
It was all talk.
where I can go.
I thought
It
you
was
were
all
going to
talk.
Oh, that's great. Oh, great.
It's all
Yeah,
talk.
awesome.
Now he's in
So
prison
MSC
because
is
he
very
was
broad
corrupt.
human rights. So, of course, we do death penalty
Right.
things,
So
but
that just shows you
there are
where
so
his
many other
integrity
facets that
was.
MSC covers.
How
So it's
crazy
really
is that?
tailored to like whatever you want it to be. If you have a passion
I'm
for
glad
it,
you
you can
guys,
have
you know,
the
I'm glad you came.
Yes, Amnesty is the place to go for any and all human rights. So I was sitting in the official engineering lab, so my pen was strangely in front of me.
So I'm involved with Amnesty as well, if you wanna talk specifically about it. Yeah, that's an AKEC. Like I said, I'm for internship summer, if that sounds like something you're interested in. Emily interned, and so,
My Kelly, pretty name, Corby.
you know,
Very
feel free to
pretty.
reach out. Sorry.
Are you guys like based around?
So we do all our work remotely, so we're based in York,
Right,
Pennsylvania.
You should have
That's
seen
kind
us
of
when we
how
were
we
kids.
we'll
He was so
start the business, Zoom,
Very
check,
shy.
something like that.
And then the first time I
Yeah, so feel free to reach out, hope you do.
How do I pronounce her name? Even though she said it to me, I was so scared I was gonna get it wrong. I was so scared I was
Yeah, feel free to take it.
Yeah,
in.
as well. I'm sorry for that.
I was so scared I was gonna get it wrong. Luckily I got it right.
That's one of those that's.
Right, right. Oh, that is too funny.
That is too
If you
funny.
can prove
It's a
basically
good way. Right, that's good.
Bars.
That's
There's a higher level.
No,
Yeah.
they gave
You
me
count
this
it.
the first
That's
time.
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. You have to like literally basically have to say, I know this guy's innocent, but good luck with that. So.
Really great.
But for everyone else, Jimmy.
A really big congratulations.
Really?
So much work and this is so work. Oh my god. I know, I'm so inspired. Like I was not on it. Not on it.
Trying to
Definitely
work.
get
It
it.
didn't work. And it's so crazy. People do not want to see no one.
I tried to be a little competitive and more on that. And so I spoke to her and I was how to basically talk to her like her most great week was and I got asked about it in front of me. So I just got everything that was ready. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll communicate, but
I was getting what? Slept?
Emily about to have, I see Emily about to have.
So, I have something I want to do, if you guys don't mind, I want to go back in terms of law.
it was really great.
So, there's a building so I started taking notes from the government law building. It's actually called the Kirby Center for Civil Rights. It is, I think, a good place. We should take a couple of pictures. So,
I guess
You did great.
would you mind coming with us to take some pictures at Kirby?
Oh, do you want me? I can do that.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Thank y'all for coming. It's a pleasure to meet all
No,
of you.
you're good. That literally just came up. So, yeah.
I think we're still.
Pleasure to meet you, sister.
iPhone.
But I actually do know how to work like
Alright,
the camera,
thank you
so
so
I was
much.
like,
Okay, no, you know, you're good.
I was like, I'm here, I mean, you know, but
Someone have my legal presence?
Yeah, I do too.
Is it black?
Yes.
Underneath for the, PAPA.
Okay, thank you. Oh, there's a. Oh. Yeah, you guys want these?
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
I do,
I
don't know
remember
how
this
the
one. We got
camera
it
is,
before
but
the
we did
event.
have, we did get all that.
That's cool.
It's not,
Yeah.
it's like 2 hours.
I think we're still rolling, actually.
Good deal.
Yesterday.
We are.
That's how